Hello, welcome back. I'm with Tara Christie, the President and CEO of Banyan Gold. Tara, good to be with you.
Great to be here, thank you.
Just kick things off, really brief overview of the company.
Banyan Gold is a Yukon-focused gold explorer. We have a 6.2 million ounce inferred gold resource in the Yukon territory in the new Tintina or Tombstone Gold Belt, as some are calling it, right beside Victoria Gold, an operating heap leach mine, and Hecla's high-grade silver right on our northern boundary. So it's a pretty exciting project.
Good, okay. Well, I've got loads of questions and I want to unpack the project. Before we go into that, just run us through the capital structure at the moment and things like burn rate, cash in the bank, all that sort of stuff.
Sure, so shares outstanding, just under 300 million, $8 million in the bank today with all our bills paid, so pretty strong treasury. Our share price, we've been trading from 27 to 30 cents, so compared to some of our peers, we've still hung in fairly well. It's because we have such a great shareholder base. I'm a 4% shareholder, which I'm not one of the founding directors of Banyan. I'm the third CEO of this company, so I've purchased that all in the market and alongside my shareholders. If I've had options that I exercise, I've held every single one of them. So I think that means I've got some real skin in the game. I want to make my money alongside my shareholders, and that's partly why we've been so disciplined with our capital management and why we still have money left at the end of the year, having been able to see that this is challenging. Our shareholders, Franklin and Fidelity have been fabulous shareholders at 9.8 and 7.4. Another 30% institutional shareholders, Victoria Gold at 11.3%, and the Cisco Development at 4%. So, a pretty solid shareholdings who really understand the mining business.
How did Victoria Gold and Cisco get involved?
So two different stories.
Yeah.
Victoria Gold was actually a shareholder of the original Shell Banyan Coast Capital, along with the acquisition of the other asset, which we still have, which has 500,000 ounces on it, but it's down in southwest Yukon and it's not really our flagship project. And then I actually joined the board back in 2012 as an appointee of Victoria Gold. And then 2 CEOs later in 2016 is when I actually became the CEO. And then in 2017 we optioned the projects which now form AurMac and staked some additional claims over the years. And then the rest history. 2019 we made our discovery at Powerline to get our first resource in spring of 2020 of 900,000 ounces. And then through COVID, we had remarkable growth.
Yep.
We drilled 40,000 meters to come out with 4 million ounces in 2022, and then another 50,000 to get us to where we are today, 6.2 million.
6 million ounces, yeah. And it's an interesting point you're at now, because I think you're sort of getting to this crunch point where you really need to start thinking about how this potentially will be built or really the future. Because talk us through the work plan this year, because really this year was about adding more ounces, right?
Yeah, adding more ounces, doing a very robust metallurgical program so that we could show what the potential recovery options are for this, and we're pretty excited about that. We did a very robust program looking all across, particularly focused on Powerline, because with it being 3.8 million ounces, it is the primary deposit.
Sure.
Looking at the heap leach, because a lot of people looked at us as a Victoria Gold 2.0, but also having talked to corporates and others, and your economics have to drive the project, we needed to look at mill scenarios with CIL and CIP and flotation and really understand what that is. Partly because other corporates, there are lots of companies that don't build heap leach mines, there are some that do, there are places like Kinross that have both mills and heap leach, so we wanted to make sure we had the most optionality for this project by doing a whole range of work. So we'll have those results coming up. We're already encouraged enough to be planning a phase 2 for 2024. It's the one thing that and our baseline environmental are in our program for sure for next year. Everything else we're taking a lot of time to look at. We still have drill results coming back from this year. We have our regional exploration. We did rocks and soils and looked at the rest of our property. We have 300 square kilometers, so potential for additional discoveries on the property. So focused a lot on that, and then once we get that back, we're going to take a little bit of time and see where this crazy market is going. Having cash in the bank means we have optionality. So that's our team is very driven and focused on how are we going to get the most value for shareholders in these current market conditions? What can we do to add the most value, de-risk the project, and move it forward? So I'll commit to that, and I'm not quite going to tell you what the actual deliverables are beyond what we've already undertaken.
Let's talk in theory though, because I guess that sort of, like you were saying, in this current market, you really need to work out what's going to return the most, and obviously the larger the project, the larger the capex. Is it the right environment to be thinking about a big capex? Is it potentially better to be looking at starter pits or high grade, increase the cutoff? What are your investors asking at the moment? What are I guess, are you getting any pressure from any of them to look at the project in a certain way or go down a certain route?
We are getting pressure to, get out some metallurgical results, tell people what it is, but that's exactly what you need to do, is to look at the range of option. What scale could it be mined? And that's why you do your studies, is you want to see at what tonnage, at what grade do you need to have a project, and how do you get a favorable IRR is really what the ultimate goal is. We're doing lots of internal analysis, looking at the high grade, both from where are the structural controls, what do we know about it. We know other mines like Brewery Creek in the Yukon was mined as a honeycomb, high grade little starter pits on surface. We've done some preliminary engineering, had a real high level look at what would this look like, as a heap leach project, how would you mine it? What would it look like as a mill, how would you mine it? Very, very early stage stuff, but that'll guide and these things are iterative. You need to get, you need to do that kind of analysis, you need to get your metallurgy, and then you need to come back and rerun scenarios. We needed to do some drilling this year to figure out where you might put infrastructure, because that's pretty important too. Yeah. So we're taking all of that and spending a bunch of time in-house doing some analysis, looking at what we know, what could add value. And so, you'll see us really spend some time to think through what we're going to do for 2024, and I think that itself is going to add a lot of value for our shareholders.
But with the current strategy of connecting the two pits at the moment, because there is a bit of a gap, isn't there? And I guess in theory you could have, is that so you can have the option of having one sort of very large, almost super pit, and I guess
that was an anomaly, and it was purely an anomaly between the two. Well, one we'd named Aurex Hill because it's up on a hill, but we really just hadn't drilled in that's a kind of a low rolling hill, and it's harder to drill, so you want to drill it in a specific time of year, which is usually the spring. So I think you can see from the drill results we put out, they are connected. It's a very remarkably consistent deposit, but that is important, because if Powerline is your phase one mining, that's probably part of it somewhere in that connection, and we'll have to actually run some numbers and see what it looks like, and then eventually do a PEA to show what the economics are. But it was important to do that, because it looked like they were two separate deposits when really we knew that the veins were really quite continuous.
Okay, good. How are you looking at, I guess, the permittability of this, and did you get the impression in Yukon that the larger the project, the harder it is to permit, or is it fairly fairly similar for?
So there's 3 levels of assessments of projects in the Yukon. There's the small exploration kind of phase for mining, and then there's the executive committee, which is like what Victoria Gold and Hecla were permitted under, and then there's the panel. And there is one project which is a very large project, which I'm sure you're aware of, and is going through a panel process, largely because it was viewed as having some non-conventional technology. So that's one of the benefits, is if you can show that your mining project uses tried and true conventional technology, not only is that better usually from a capital cost perspective and an energy consumption perspective, but it's also from a permittability perspective. And that is something that we think our project uniquely has, is that we have the baseline environmental data. You need 3 years in order to go through permitting, but because of Victoria Gold and Hecla beside us, having already collected that data and us starting our own baseline programs in 2021, it does give us a little bit of an advantage in having that to be able to permit it. If you look at our project site, it's very moderate topography. There's no big mountains or glaciers or big rivers that run through it with fish. Those are all troublesome points when you're permitting. We have one settled First Nation, which in Canada, having settled First Nation does change how the permitting process can work, which is great. So then they work very collaboratively and have agreements with the 2 mines right beside us. So, that doesn't mean permitting anywhere is a slam dunk. Permitting does take work and planning, but we are certainly setting this project up for success the best that we can.
And when can you start submitting the permits? Because obviously in certain jurisdictions you need to have your sort of mine plan, your economics already there. And I guess connected to that, if the way I was hoping you might be able to look at it is obviously have different alternative scenarios whenever you do get around to doing some economics on there. So you could potentially look at doing something much larger that potentially is a bit more appealing to M&A. Or you could do something smaller, which is probably a bit more achievable in terms of junior company getting into production and then expanding. Will you be able to, do you think, be able to show the 2 different types? And do you have to make a decision on which type before you go through the permitting process?
You do. You should have a project that stays still through permitting. That's one of the key things about Canadian permitting, and specifically the Yukon, is even if you want to apply for amendment later, your project should stay still in permitting. Otherwise, it just adds time and complexity. So that is the next step. Really, is you need at least a PEA to go into permitting. PEAs aren't difficult. There's particularly if they're technology. This is a jurisdiction where there's 2 operating mines, so there's already some baseline for costs. So it's really getting the information on what the best processes are and then doing that options analysis. And you actually have to do an options analysis for the permitting process in the Yukon anyway. And you're best to do that. You want to let the economics drive the project. And there's the scalability, how much can the size of company finance. But I actually believe that there will be M&A in this district. It is Canada's, I think, new discoveries being made. I think you'll be able to see that there's likely a 20 million ounce gold camp here, and that will bring interest, not on Banyan, but in the camp. That might be a little too forward-looking, but that will bring excitement, and there will be some district infrastructure that's built. Victoria Gold having a heap leach mine just down the road, that's significant.
Does that then, I guess, tailor the way that you have to look at the project? If you have M&A in mind, you sort of then have to look at, well, what would a major or a mid-tier around me, what type of project would they like, rather than
what would we build?
What would you build? Yeah. So
we have to look at it, but we're not focused on that. We're not sitting around waiting to be taken out. We run all the scenarios. What if one of our 2 neighbors' mines purchased us? What would they want to see? What if somebody is to build this as a standalone, not us? What would they want to see? What do the corporates generally like? Is there somebody looking at consolidating the district that wants to see? So that's part of looking at a broader range than just ourselves. And then we'll figure out if Banyan is the right choice for Banyan to build it. What project is the right scale and scope for that? And then obviously if that's what you were going to do, that's what you would lead into permitting for. We have a little time to make those decisions.
No, you do, and that's the beauty of it.
Got to be there too. So.
And there's a lot that could happen between now and then, and there's still a lot more gold to be found, which is exciting. Talk me through what the plan is until you are near that PEA. Say, what further work do you want to see on the ground, and sort of the discussions you need to have internally?
Well, we're having lots of discussions on what our different options are, and how we would spend money, what we would potentially get out of it. And I think that we haven't finished that exercise yet. We don't have to make a decision right away on what our full 2024 program is. And I think having the benefit of getting all our results from this year, getting the metallurgy out, seeing how that's received, will be helpful. Getting our regional exploration results out, and then seeing what happens in 2024. The gold price is actually a fairly good gold price. Of 19 to 2,000 is nothing to, and a lot of companies that are gold producers are making a lot of money. So it's just the juniors which really haven't seen.
It wasn't that long ago when $1,600 gold was a good gold price, and everyone was asking for 2,000. We got it. So. It's definitely not about. So talk me through, I guess, the next 12. I know you haven't announced your full plan yet, but in terms of expected results that we're still waiting on, and I guess some of the key things that you're going to have to do, like some of the met work and any other work.
We're encouraged by the met work. We're already planning a phase 2 for next year. Met work continues on these types of projects, and that's how you make them better. Our baseline environmental will continue that. And we will do some exploration. We haven't decided exactly how we're going to add the most value with that yet. So you have to stay tuned for me to tell you what the full plan is. With $8 million, that gives us options. But the prudent management should spend some time to figure out what's going to add the most value, because it's not a normal market. People are putting out great drill results, adding lots of ounces. We've added lots of ounces, and the market's not responding to that. So that's not necessarily a good use of money. And advancing a project at all costs when you're spending shareholders' dollars is not always the best option. Or and I would love to be out there. Great guns drilling again. We got a great team. We can add ounces very quickly. We could convert them, but it's timing too, and making sure that you're protecting your shareholders' value. We have 6.2 million ounces. That's significant, and we need to make sure that what we choose to do in 2024 really adds the most value. And that's partly why being at some of these shows, I can talk to some of my big shareholders. You get a sense of what people are thinking in other countries, what investors are thinking. That's all very useful to spend some time listening and hearing what some of the experts that are speaking are saying in terms of the macro environment and what expectations are. That'll all inform our decisions.
Is part of the toss-up for next year between infill and further sort of more greenfield exploration? Is that one of the considerations as well?
Oh, absolutely that. Updating the resource, PEA. We sat down as a team and we wrote a big list of all the things that we potentially could do, and then we're going to spend a bunch of time, we're off doing, my technical guys are off doing a bunch of work, okay, what would that look like? How much it would it cost? What would we get for this? What are our odds of success? And then, then we can have a conversation that's really meaningful based on information. And quite frankly, having time. We've been so busy the last few years, adding ounces. Actually, to stop and reflect and look at data a little bit differently than you have before, take a bit of a mining eye to it. That's been super helpful and informative to our team. So I think that our team's going to be well positioned for 2024. We're taking the time to do the technical work and not just saying, oh, we're just going to drill it to infill.
I think it's a really very, very wise decision personally. It's not as if you're in a position where you need more ounces necessarily at the moment, and 6 million's a fantastic.
We're the 5th largest undeveloped project in North America.
Yeah.
That's on the top of the chart.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking forward to it because I think, like we were sort of saying at the very beginning, it's a bit of an inflection point for you guys at the moment. There's multiple ways you can take this project, and I'm just looking forward to finding out in 2024 what that route turns out to be.
Thank you. Well, we look forward to continuing to add value. That's the one commitment I will make, is we are very focused on that.
Perfect. Tara, thank you.
Thank you.